Chair Hoops, Vice Chair Abrams, Ranking Member Leland, and members of the House Select Committee on Energy Policy and Oversight. My name is Dr. Aparna Bole. I'm a pediatrician practicing in Cleveland, Ohio, and a member of the Ohio chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm reading the written testimony I submitted in opposition to House Bill 798. I'm advocating for the immediate repeal of House Bill 6 because it sends us in the wrong direction on the clean energy transition Ohio needs to protect our public health, and because of the corrupt nature of its passage. House Bill 798 fails to do both of those things. I'd like to share with you why House Bill 798, just like the bill it fails in trying to fix, House Bill 6, is not just an energy bill, it is a child health bill. Its provisions will harm the health of Ohio's children. In particular, by keeping the rollback of Ohio's renewable portfolio and energy efficiency resource standards, and by subsidizing coal-fired power plants, our public health will suffer from worsened air quality, with children bearing the brunt of that burden. In addition, House Bill 798 still excludes clean, renewable energy sources like wind and solar from consideration as a, quote, clean air resource, and creates barriers to development of new wind farms, further handicapping our state's health-promoting transition to a clean energy future. Children are particularly vulnerable to the health effects of air pollution for many reasons. They breathe more air per pound of body weight than adults, so they experience higher exposures than adults for the same levels of air pollution, and their organ systems are undergoing critical periods of rapid development. Their lungs continue to develop after birth through much of childhood, and exposure to air pollution can permanently impair lung growth. Children also spend more time outdoors, resulting in higher exposure to outdoor air pollutants. A recently released report by the Asthma and Allergy Foundation identified 6 Ohio cities in its top 20 asthma capitals in the United States. Ohio's pediatricians have a frontline view of the toll this takes on our kids. In the communities I serve in Cleveland, 1 in 5 children has asthma. That is more than twice the national prevalence of childhood asthma. Surface ozone and particulate air pollution from burning fossil fuels both cause and exacerbate chronic lung conditions, including asthma. Exercise and play are essential parts of children's growth and development, but when air pollution levels are high, we must tell our young patients with asthma that it's unsafe for them to play or exercise outdoors. At the end of this school year, I saw one of my patients for a summer sports physical. He's a little boy who's obese and who also has asthma. I high-fived him and his family for signing up for a sports camp. We had been talking for a while about how physical activity is important for his health. However, I had to provide a caveat. On poor air quality days, he needed to stay inside because he is at high risk for asthma exacerbation. How unjust that this child doing what kids should be doing in the summer, playing outside, can't always do that because we haven't ensured that he consistently has clean air to breathe. Continuing the rollback of Ohio's renewable energy and energy efficiency standards will make impossible choices like this even more frequent for pediatricians, kids, and families. Air pollution affects kids' health in many other ways, beyond asthma and other lung diseases. Ever-increasing evidence indicates that prenatal and early childhood exposure to air pollution affects brain development. I've heard air pollution being described appropriately as, quote, the new lead, meaning that kids' learning, attention, and behavior are all negatively impacted by air pollution, especially particulate air pollution, which is emitted by coal-fired power plants. Childhood exposure to pollution from coal-fired power plants results in impaired cognitive functioning, reduced test scores, and reduced grade point averages among school children. Prenatal exposure can even affect the quality of kids' sleep, underscoring growing evidence that the developing brain is very vulnerable to the effects of air pollution. Kindergarten readiness is an important indicator of kids' well-being in our Ohio communities, and I care for kids in my practice who experience many risk factors for suboptimal school readiness. If we're serious about enhancing our kids' school readiness, we need to be serious about clean air. Prenatal exposure to air pollution also increases risk for low birth weight and prematurity. Both of these are risk factors for infant mortality. As you know, infant mortality is a health crisis in Cleveland and other Ohio cities. A study published last year that examined 10 years of birth records in California showed that closing 8 coal and oil power plants in California resulted in a 20% decrease in preterm birth for mothers living within 10 kilometers of these plants. As one of my obstetrician colleagues observed, if we had invented a technology that could decrease premature birth by 20%, we would be shouting it from the rooftops. The evidence is clear. Transitioning to clean energy is an important public health intervention to improve birth outcomes. In other words, if we're serious about reducing infant mortality, we need to be serious about clean air. Recent research at the MIT Joint Program on the Science and Policy of Global Change evaluated health effects and economy-wide costs of Ohio's renewable portfolio standards and found that by 2030, the impact to Ohio's economy in avoided annual premature deaths would translate to an economic benefit of $470 million per year, or 3 cents for every kilowatt hour of renewable energy generation supported by the RPS, far exceeding the cost of the RPS, with these health benefits yielding a net of $170 million per year. If the health benefits of the energy efficiency standards are added to these estimates, these standards will result in preventing over 44,000 asthma attacks, 2,400 asthma-related emergency room visits, 4,400 heart attacks, and over 2,800 premature deaths by 2030. Finally, continuing the repeal of Ohio's Renewable Portfolio Standard and Energy Efficiency Resource Standard and subsidizing coal-fired power plants would expose more children not just to increased harmful particulate air pollution, but also to toxic heavy metals like mercury and to other dangerous pollutants. Ohio cannot afford the current repeal of our standards. The health of our children is at risk. Pediatricians have a responsibility to alert parents, our community, and policymakers about threats to our children's health. Babies and young children cannot advocate for themselves, so we as child health advocates must speak for them. In addition, there is no greater duty of the government than to protect our most vulnerable citizens. Because of this, I would like to conclude by stating that measures that reduce air pollution and support our transition to clean and renewable energy, like our RPS and EERS and avoidance of coal plant subsidies, are measures to protect Ohio's most valuable resource, our children. I urge this committee to reject House Bill 798 and instead fully repeal House Bill 6 by supporting House Bill 738, House Bill 746, and Senate Bill 346. Thank you again for the opportunity to share this testimony.